Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Minerva Genesis deck profile for post-dimensional Transcendence. We did get a new support card for Minerva in the deck. It's also been a while since the last update, so I figured it was update and time for an update. Big thanks to my buddy Jim for letting me borrow his Minerva deck for the deck profile. It's definitely a fun one at that, just having the restand power that Minerva initially had with all the soul buildup that you can do with the deck as well at its fingertips. Updated since the last version, I believe, to be the 4-card, ride deck and the 50-card extra main deck as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. Now, there isn't an energy generator with the deck. He just mixes around his energy generator, which is the very smart thing to do. You should really, not have multiple energy generators. They're so expensive right now. Until they're made more readily available, I definitely recommend just, the one that you move around. But for the rest of the deck, one copy of Vivid Rabbit when wrote upon. If you want second, draw a card. The grade 1 is Witch of Frogs Melissa when wrote upon by a unit with only Genesis for its clan. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck and choose up to 2 cards from among them. Put them into the soul, shuffle your deck when this card, and then we'll have the additional effect for the multiples on rearguard ability when we get to the other cards. But with the other grade 2s, we also run the 1 Witch of Ravens, Chamomile, when wrote upon by a unit with only Genesis for its clan. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 cards from among them, put them into your soul, and shuffle your deck. So just more and more soul build up for your ride deck, with our grade 3 being Omniscience Regalia Minerva, along with the copy we run in the main deck. We're also running the 3 additional copies for the Persona Ride power in the main deck. Also, during your turn, if your soul has a grade 3 card with Regalia and its card name, all your front row gets +5. On Vanguard once per turn, you can soul blast 1, look at the top card of your deck, put that card into the top of your deck or into your soul. And on Vanguard once per turn at the end of battle, this unit attacked. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, counterblast 1, soul blast 3, discard a card with only Genesis for its clan name from your hand, stand this unit and gets drive -1. A very, very easy, restand just for needing that soul power to do that. With our other grade 3s being 4 copies of Regalia of Wisdom Angelica. For its rearguard ability at the end of battle, this unit attacked. If you have a Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, soul blast 1, choose one of your Vanguards, it gets +5 to end of turn, and then put this unit in your soul to countercharge 1, making up for the counterblast that you'll definitely go through quite easily with this deck, but also being able to give you power to your Vanguard for its restand pressure, as well as just having this card be the attack to go into the soul to clear up your rearguards for other cards like Chamomile and Witch of Frogs as well when they're soul blast from your Vanguard soul. For the grade 2s, for our new grade 2 from Dimensional Transcendence, we're running 4 copies of Freezing Magic Froros. If you have a Vanguard with Genesis only for its clan, this card is only from Genesis. And then with this card, when it's placed on rearguard, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, soul blast 2. And this card, choose 2 of your normal units with the same card name and without Sentinel from your drop. Choose, if you chose 2 cards, put 1 in the hand, return the rest to your deck and shuffle it. Recycle power for your soul charges, but the being only Genesis instead of also Keter gives you options for the discard for your Minerva to be able to use for its own cost, since this will just be a Genesis unit. We are also running the 4 copies of Knight of Deity Decree Thassis. It was recently reprinted in the Festival Boosters, so more readily available for people wanting to fully power out this deck with this card. When it's placed on rearguard, if you only have a Vanguard with Genesis for its clan, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, put into your soul, put the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. And on rearguard at the end of the battle, this unit attack, if you have a Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, soul blast 1, retire this unit, chooses a card from your hand or drop, put into the soul. If you put a card from your hand, draw a card. So more draw power and recycle power on top of that using this card, but also being able just to have more search as well to put cards into your soul depending on the specifics you want. Some of these specifics may include cards like the additional 3 copies of Witch of Ravens Chamomile when it's put from the soul into your drop during your turn. If you have a Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, counterblast 1 and call this card to rearguard, making up for the cards that could potentially be retired and put into soul for you to then get another unit on the field for you to then be able to attack with after you soul blast with Minerva. And lastly, 1 copy of Drilling Angel, just more of a setup card when it's placed, and one of a 1-card tech, he said as well. Put a card from your drop into your soul, look at 3 cards on top of your deck, choose up to 1 card with the same card name as the card put into soul for your costs among them, and call it to rearguard. More setup for your rearguards, but also just being able to make use of the cards you put into the soul also for your other units. For the grade 1s, 3 copies additionally, along with the one in the ride deck for Witch of Frogs Melissa. When it's rode upon by a unit with only Genesis for its clan, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. We have that ability already. And with this card, when it's put into the drop from Soul, if you have a Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, you can Soul Blast. You can call this card to the back row rearguard. If you called it to the rearguard, you may Soul Charge 1. So it gives you a booster, especially for cards like our Witch of Ravens Chamomile, to set up a full column depending on the rearguards. But you have to call Melissa to the back row rearguard, so it's always just set up to be your blaster. And also 4 copies of Apple Witch Cider, being a Genesis card as well. On rearguard, at the end of the battle, this unit boosted. If you have a Vanguard with Minerva in its card name, you may return this unit to your hand. And when it's put on the guard circle, if your soul is a grade 3 with Regalia in its card name, it gets +5 shield. So just a bounce card to add as an additional boost, but also be able to use as a 10k shield against your opponent when it's bounced back to your hand to then use on the following turn. For other grade 1s, 4 copies of Magic of Colored Flame, Rare Limb, when it's placed on rearguard other than during the battle phase. If you have a Vanguard with only Genesis in its card name, counter +1, soul +1, draw a card, choose a card from your hand, reveal it, call it to rearguard. And if it is a unit with the same grade or less than equal to your Vanguard, and discard it if it's not. So more set up for multiple cards to be placed on the field. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted. If you have a Vanguard with only Genesis, put 2 rearguards for the same column as this unit into the soul. Choose a card from your drop with only Genesis and put it into your hand. Recycle power as well, depending on the Genesis card you add back, thanks to this card, but it's all just a really, really good setup to rely on with the other Genesis cards. As I said, the new grade 2 that we got, main power is the fact that it is not a Genesis unit, but it can be counted as Genesis for its clan and only from Genesis. So very, very useful for that additional discard power and set up with this card also. And then the last of the grade 1s, 4 copies of the Sentinel, just having more actual units. If you want to run Elementary Sanctitude, you could always drop a copy of the Sentinel to put in another copy into the deck. With our trigger lineup, since Minerva is a restanding Vanguard, we're going full critical pressure, so 8 critical, 4 copies of Blade Feather Dragon, and 4 copies of Daring Knight Saul. So once again, just that restand, it's a drive -1, so you'll still have the 1 additional drive check for you to use with your Vanguard after the restand. If it got a critical beforehand on the twin drive, all the more powerful. And also the 3 copies of Ferobi. Didn't really go with the front trigger since we're, putting rearguards in the soul, so we could potentially be missing out on rearguard attacks, and we just need a little bit more hand consistency to potentially get us the Genesis card we need for the discard also. With the last of the heals being 4 copies of Recuperate Angel, and also the 1 copy of a Martinoa for the over trigger of choice. If you wanted to use Eidos Faro, that was another one that we were testing out in the deck, but still preference of what you may want to use for the add back power of Eidos Faro or just the rearguard pressure, since we do run a grade 3 rearguard for the potential twin drive also off of that card. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. Once again, big thanks to my buddy Jim for letting me borrow the Minerva Genesis deck for the video. There's a lot from the Dimensional Transcendence booster set that still needs to be updated until we get to set 4, so stay tuned for more. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.